are now, hopefully, if we did it right, behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, everybody? Gene Berardelli, Ross Galloway here. Are you there, pal? Ground control to Major Galloway.
Oh man, for those of you guys that are watching this and looking at the chat, Gene already tried to throw me under the bus, saying that my bandwidth might not be good enough.
Well, the spoils go to the victor, my friend. As you see, I have declared myself the victor of the great BEL Beard War of 2024. I'm the last man standing right here.
You definitely beat me so far. It's a long year, though. Lots of game left.
Galloway gave in to domesticity. That's all I got to say about that. He caved. He bailed. He tapped out.
I had to pose for my pardon picture. I had to be clean.
Yes, and congratulations for that. Okay, so new face, new life, new year. I totally get it. That'll
start.
There you go. So how was your week? You had a good first week?
So good, man. I'm having a blast.
It's been a fun first week. There's been so much news that we often talked about the Ross Galloway theory of news coverage. And do me a favor, explain it to the people what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, because I heard some people talking about it on the news earlier today, and they were using different terminology. But the one of the phrases I may have coined or heard from somebody smarter than me years ago, and I've used it since, was the tennis ball theory, right? Like, pretend you're on the receiving end of a tennis ball machine, and if it's shooting one ball every few seconds, you can return them. But if you have 20 tennis ball machines shooting rapid fire at you, you can't hit them all back. Right now, Donald Trump is firing on all cylinders. He has 20 tennis ball machines. The media can't keep up. The Democrats can't keep up. AOC is melting down. MSNBC is more unwatchable than it's ever been. And it's great. I'm loving every minute of this.
Jim Acosta is seeing a career resurgence. We're seeing all kinds of buffoons on the Democrat side in the Senate that we've been talking about for weeks now on the channel. And it's also been on our website, www.behindenemylines. Behind Enemy Lines. That used to be the website. It's buffoonoftheweek.com. I screwed it up, pal. The website's been pumping. We've been putting up so much content. I'm tired, pal. I am so tired of all the content we're putting up daily on the site.
And it's amazing. I hope it doesn't stop, right? In years past, doing a show every week, it's really for our own therapy, really. It's therapeutic for us. But doing one show a week used to be fine, because you recap all the highlights. News doesn't break, 24/7. But I've heard it called Trump time. In Trump time, even if you did a show every day, you wouldn't be able to keep up with this guy.
Oh, it's more like
it's been like that for years now.
It's more like bullet time, pal. There's something new happening all the time, whether it be Trump doing something or a reaction to Trump doing something. But then you add in other cast of characters like Elon Musk and reacting to him, and Vivek Ramaswamy, news that he broke this week as well. But all the videos that we do here on the channel, the next day it goes up on buffoonoftheweek.com. You can see right now we did a show this morning on Macy Hirono. We talked about Joe Biden's preemptive pardons, and we're talking about what's going on with the Senate confirmation hearings. Like, I'll just click on an article here right now about what happened with Pete Hegseth. And as you see, as you go through the article, there's the box right there to watch the video. Check it out, buffoonoftheweek.com. We're just getting started with doing things with it, folks. Check it out. Put it into your morning blog roll. I know that I have a morning blog roll that I go through. I check the Post, I check the Washington Post, I check the New York Times, I check a bunch of different papers, a bunch of different websites, Politico and out there. Put this into your daily blog roll. There's only going to be one story a day coming out on it right now until I clone myself. But it's going to be fun. I hope you check it out, buffoonoftheweek.com. So that takes care of, some of the BS we got going on here in Buffoon of the Week land. Do you want to get into some news, or do you have any more, got any more bullshit as people come in? We got, good group of people coming in right now. Let us know where you are in the chat. If you're on X, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, shout it out. Let us know where you're listening to us from. And if you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the shows. And if you like what you see in this video, smash that thumbs up button. Did you get snow, by the way, down south where you are?
We did 6 inches. I'm south of the Mason-Dixon line, and yeah, 6 inches, unreal.
You thought you escaped it, and you couldn't do it.
It came back with me from New York. It's funny because I was in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey area last weekend for a family event, and it was snowing up there. I was like, all right, I can't wait to get out of here and come back. 6 inches of snow where I live.
How are the people coping with the snow?
To be honest, the southern states get a bad rap, but they're pretty good from what I've seen. The roads in some of the smaller town areas, they still have snow on them, but it's going to be 50 degrees probably tomorrow afternoon, so it'll be gone. So you take a day off, you chill. The school's closed. They did the right thing. It's not like when we were kids in New York. You could have 6 feet of snow. The school wasn't closing. There was no e-learning or virtual classes.
Oh, you know what? The blizzard of 96, pal. I vividly remember having to walk to Sheepshead Bay High School in Brooklyn. 84% of the teachers were out. I remember. It's burned into my brain. So but you know what? We lived in an age where we actually got snow days and we didn't lose out because there was virtual learning available. So thank God for small favors. So, my friend, what do you want to start out with first? We got a nice smorgasbord of news to talk about. We can talk about Trump's first week. We can talk about the aforementioned Jim Acosta. We can talk about AOC. We can talk about what the hell's going on in Minnesota and how they're fighting against democracy there under Tim Walz. What's your pleasure, pal?
So much, man. So much. And I think we should touch on the pardons, right? I mean, on both, there was 2 sets of pardons right out of the box, a day apart. Let's start there, actually, real quick.
Yeah, let's start with let's start with the Biden preemptive pardons. Yes. We did you know what? This is actually a great time to go to buffoonoftheweek.com and check out the article about Joe Biden's preemptive pardons. Let me pull that up on the screen right here, and we can discuss it. This is why we have a website. This is what we should be doing with it, for goodness sakes. So, from the staff at buffoonoftheweek.com, a.k.a. me.
I was going to say, it's a one-man team.
a.k.a. me. Corrupt right to the end. Joe's preemptive and presumptive, I guess, pardons taint legacy. In the final moments, as President Joe Biden issued a series of controversial preemptive pardons, which quickly ignited a fierce debate. Along with the broader implications that these preemptive pardons that extended to the president's own family, many are debating the effect these self-serving pardons will have on the outgoing president's legacy. And as you see through the article, by the way, there's the video we did on it. It's up on Rumble right now. That's from the Rumble player, because we're not linking with an equal opportunity linker. Biden's list of last-minute preemptive pardons included high-profile public figures such as General Mark Milley, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and members of the J6 Select Committee like Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson, and I believe Adam Schiff as well, and even certain members of his own family, Jim Biden and other siblings and their spouses. Previously, the president had also pardoned his son Hunter, as we all know, after he was convicted on federal charges. I call this Biden's final act of hypocrisy, pal. What do you think about this?
I mean, hypocrisy, I say this like every time this topic comes up. That's like a given, hypocrisy. But this is worse. I mean, I understand the Constitution says that the president's pardon power is plenary, right? Like he gets to do whatever he wants pretty much. But this one reeks. And even Democrats have to admit that these pardons stink, especially the ones for his own family, right? The only preemptive pardon that most people can point to, including most historians and political commentators, is the Nixon pardon from Gerald Ford, which was sort of preemptive, right? But that was on the heels of President Nixon and the Watergate scandal. President Nixon resigned from office, right? So there's something to be said, because even the federal government does that when they are doing corruption cases against politicians. A lot of times, if a politician agrees to resign from office and the offense isn't, a violent offense, it was something more white collar, they won't even prosecute because that's punishment enough, right? But in the Biden era, these preemptive pardons, no one was even seriously talking about specific charges against any of these people. As far as we know, there's no active investigations even happening. To compound the problem, most of these preemptive pardons, he backdated them to 2014 for a lot of them, which is corrupt as you can get. That predates his presidency, right? For what?
Absolutely.
What crimes would have been committed since 2014 for Biden's family?
What is the significance of the year 2014 as it pertains to Biden Inc., Mr. Galloway?
Well, I know Biden Inc. was heavily involved in the happenings in a country called Ukraine during that time period. There's his own government officials in congressional hearings, I forgot the woman's name, admitted that there were biolabs, there's still biolabs in Ukraine that are funded by the United States government, right, that we can't allow to fall into the hands of the Russians. Hunter Biden had his hands all over that stuff. His whole family had shell companies and were receiving payments, including the big guy, Joe Biden himself, received a indirect payment through money laundering and shell companies of $40,000, right? And his brother repaid a loan that there's no proof was ever given to him and no interest ever paid, right? So full circle here, Gene, because, by the way, the one that gets me the worst is Dr. Fauci, because that man deserves to hang in a public square after a fair trial, of course. But Joe Biden didn't pardon himself. Now, whether that was an oversight, dementia, or he doesn't think he has long to go, he didn't pardon himself. And all of these people are tied to him. Like I said, Congressman Comer pretty much let the evidence out already that Biden himself received funds through this money laundering scheme. So buckle up. I think the DOJ under Donald Trump should absolutely go after Joe Biden. And if any classified documents happen to leave the White House, he gets a deadline of like an hour to bring him back, or we raid his house like they did to Mar-a-Lago.
I totally get what you're saying on that. And it remains to be seen if Trump is going to move forward or if he is going to settle that score. I think he'd be well within his right to investigate this because this does have the smack of corruption to it. Let's go back in time, though, Mr. Galloway. Let's go back in time to probably a more complicated time. Let's go back to December of 2020, when then President-elect Joe Biden and his Vice President-elect Kamala Harris appeared on CNN with Jake Tapper to discuss the news that Donald Trump, actually it wasn't really news, it was speculation that Donald Trump was looking into whether or not he could preemptively pardon his own family and close confidants like Rudy Giuliani.
Reportedly considering a wave of preemptive pardons. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of it, what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons, nor are you going to see in our administration the approach to making policy by tweets. It's just going to be a totally different way in which we approach the justice system.
Well, that aged like warm milk now, didn't it, pal?
Yeah. This man claimed he would never do that and then did it. And I know we're going to talk about Donald Trump in a few. Donald Trump actually ran on saying he would pardon people, and he did, right? So that's a big difference. One guy said he would never do it. The other guy saying he will do it, and then they both did it anyway, right? So who's full of crap on this one? By the way, the other pardons that we didn't talk about, which is astonishing too, Joe Biden tries to paint himself as the rule of law guy, right? I believe in the system. I believe in the jury trial in the Department of Justice until he doesn't, right? He also pardoned 37 federal death row inmates. Not pardoned, he commuted their sentences, right, to give them life in prison. Oh, well, some people are saying, well, life in prison might actually be worse. That's good. They're never going to get out. Okay. But he also released several cop killers the other day. A guy who killed 2 FBI agents, another guy who killed a Virginia state trooper. He just let him out of federal prison, right? So there's no such thing as a life sentence when you got leftists who pardon cop killers, right? I don't want to hear about the January 6th pardons for minor offenses and in some cases made up offenses for the obstruction of an official proceeding, which was thrown out by the Supreme Court. Right? I don't want to hear about that shit. Donald Trump said he was going to do it, and he did it. This guy is corrupt. The most pardons in modern history, I think, ever. It was over 2,000 pardons and clemencies when you add up all Biden's one term. He did. It's insanity.
I just want to give one example of what you're talking about here, pal. And this came out in the New York Post today. The headline says, Biden grants clemency to drug dealer convicted in double slaying of 8-year-old boy and his mom, sparking outrage even from Democrats. So one of the pardons that you just talked about very bad people, was a Connecticut drug kingpin convicted in the deaths of an 8-year-old boy and his mother. He got clemency at the 11th hour. His name is Adrian Peeler. He's from Bridgeport, Connecticut. He was serving 25 years in state prison on conspiracy charges in the deaths of Karen Clark and her 8-year-old son, B.J. Brown, back in January of 1999. The two had been slated to testify a month later against Peeler's brother, who also is a drug kingpin named Russell Peeler. He was on trial for killing Clark's boyfriend and another rival dealer. So obviously we're dealing with some really high upstanding people in this situation. This is a prime example of what Joe Biden let out of jail. Peeler served his 25 years on the conspiracy conviction and then was transferred to the federal prison system to serve out his 35-year sentence for dealing cocaine. So this was part of Joe Biden's release of drug dealers, trying to make it all seem like they're all, just upstanding citizens who got caught up in the drug war that he created himself, by the way. And stuff like this. Look at it. This kid is gone, and Joe Biden let his killer out.
For a second chance, right? But they wanted to keep the leader of the Proud Boys locked up for 20 years. For what? He wasn't even at the Capitol, right? And they're outraged.
By the way, here's a quote from Dick Blumenthal, who's the senator, one of the senators from Connecticut, former attorney general as well. It seems to me that someone dropped the ball here to let this person get released. Blumenthal was the attorney general when I was in law school up in Connecticut in 2001, 2002. So he probably knows this case very well. This was a really vicious murder that changed our laws, says Blumenthal. It also highlights how we need to take a look at the pardon system to see how it can be improved. Do you think the pardon system needs to be improved?
It's a tough one, man, because I appreciate... let me tell you what I think needs to be improved before we get too deep into the pardons, because I think this would actually resolve some of this. I don't agree with the current view that double jeopardy does not come into effect when you are charged both by the state and the federal government for just about the same crime, right? I just don't think that makes sense. And it actually puts pressure on the pardon system in a lot of ways, because when you have someone who truly deserves a pardon, but is charged by both the state and the federal government, only the federal side can cure that ill, if you will, right? So that's one problem with the pardon system and the double jeopardy clause as it's currently interpreted. But then fast forward, should the president have king-like powers when it comes to pardons? I don't think we've ever seen it abused this way. So now it is a valid question, right? But which president is going to want to give up this power and not be able to use it for himself and his family and his friends now, right? Joe Biden, much like what the Democrats have done throughout recent history, meaning the last 50 years or so, they set these dangerous precedents, right? And then when Republicans follow the precedent, they get labeled the bad guy, right? The nuclear option, eliminating the filibuster for certain federal judges, and then the Supreme Court, and now nominees, and then we're flirting with just getting rid of the filibuster altogether. It's always the Democrats that initiate it, and the Republicans have to play along, and then we get labeled the bad guy. Should Donald Trump push the Congress and the states to try to amend the Constitution to fix the pardon power? I think it's worth looking at, right? I don't know how I don't know how you would fix it though, because with the state being also able to charge you for the same crime, it almost doesn't make a difference.
Well, the question becomes, what is the check on the president when it comes to these pardons? There really is no constitutional check for it. I don't think that there should be. I think the pardon system is fine. This is the get out of jail free card that everybody's been using since the birth of our nation. And we just have to remember those moments when it is abused and remind people later on of that hypocrisy going forward. Hopefully, the shaming of Joe Biden in this respect will do the trick here. Just before we head over to the other side of the aisle when it comes to pardons and talking about
I
President
just want to
Trump's
close the
pardon.
loop on that topic real quick before we go to that too.
Yeah. Well, just real quick, I'll let you get the last word. I just want to show this to you and give a little solace to those out there who think that the Biden family and Fauci and Liz Cheney and all of them, they got off virtually scot-free. And they did in a procedural sense, but this is what I tell people about these preemptive pardons. This is a Supreme Court case from 1915, Burdick versus United States. I'm not going to make everybody read the whole thing. I am going to highlight one section here. And that's this paragraph right here. I'm going to highlight it so you guys can see it. There are substantial differences between legislative immunity and a pardon. The latter carries an imputation of guilt and acceptance of a confession of it, while the former is noncommittal and tantamount to silence of the witness. If all these people accepted this pardon, the Liz Cheneys, the Anthony Faucis, the Biden family, the Adam Kinzingers, the Adam Schiffs, the Benny Thompsons, the Mark Millies, if they accepted this pardon, then they have confessed to the guilt of some offense. That's what the law says. Biden said in his statement about the pardons that there should be no guilt attached to the granting or acceptance of these preemptive pardons. Sorry, Jack, that's not what the law says. So if you want to go around and say the Biden crime family, you can say that legally and it's not defamatory, because by accepting these pardons based upon the Supreme Court, they committed an offense, they confessed to it, and they have this imputation of guilt that is with them for life. Small solace, I know, but I just wanted to put that out there to everybody. You can get the last word on this topic, pal.
Yeah, and I think it's sad because in a perfect world, I would agree with that Supreme Court decision. But it speaks to the fact that most people do not trust the Department of Justice, nor do they trust the jury trial, the jury system, right? And that's a shame because we always say like we have the worst system of government or the worst system of criminal justice, except for all the other ones, right? We're the best of the worst. But now so many people don't trust it that if I got offered a pardon, even though I did nothing wrong, I would probably take it too. I don't care what that Supreme Court decision says. The part that I wanted to close what I was saying before was why the pardon system is broken, even if we limited the president's powers on this. So they receive federal pardons, and I'm talking about the Biden people right now, but the same thing can be said of the Trump pardons. So they received these federal pardons, but there's already chatter on the Republican side, and I think rightfully so, that a lot of these people can be prosecuted in state courts for similar offenses. The Biden family, Dr. Fauci, Idaho, there's a representative of Idaho right now talking about prosecuting Fauci, right, for a lot of the stuff that he is pardoned for on the federal level. So is that the right way to do business? Probably not, but it's another precedent that the Democrats set by having county district attorneys, and there's thousands of them across the country, prosecuting people now, regardless of whether they got a federal pardon. It's irrelevant, right? Because the state governors get to decide on the state level, right? So more power to the Republicans, by the way. Do it. They did it to us. Do it to them.
It's certainly uncharted waters when it comes to the shoe being on the other foot here when it comes to pardons. We're going to continue on with this discussion of pardons right now. Before we get to the other side of the coin here, remember to please, everybody, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like, share the show with your friends, all the good stuff to help the channel grow as we have been for the past couple of years, little by little, inch by inch. Yes, this is our therapy, but we're glad that you're listening to our griping and whining. On the other side of the coin, while Joe Biden is commuting sentences and granting pardons to killers of children and drug dealers, his own family, and issuing preemptive pardons, Donald Trump is issuing pardons of his own to many people who were convicted or awaiting trial based upon the events of January 6, 2021. And this has created a career resurgence for those talking heads on the left, like Jim Acosta and others, who are crying and wailing and bitching and moaning about all things Trump and how Trump is the bad guy. Even in light of all these bad pardons that barely batted an eye, they barely batted an eyelash at this, pal. And I don't know why people aren't just seeing the hypocrisy of this buffoonery here.
So I think they are. I don't think Donald Trump won, right? Donald Trump wasn't pussyfooting around with what he was going to do about January 6th, right? He said what he was going to do, and he won. He won a majority of the popular vote. So CNN and MSNBC and the Democrats can keep on crying about January 6th. The American people know it doesn't even pop on the charts during the election time of a top issue for anyone, right? It was by definition, January 6th was a mostly peaceful protest. Did they go over the line? Yes. We've said it here. The first wave of people that broke into the Capitol, completely over the line. But what's the penalty for that? What is the penalty for destroying a little government property, which we watched happen throughout the whole summer of 2020? What is the penalty for a little destruction of public property and trespassing? Is it 3 years in jail? Is it 10 years in jail? These people were mostly convicted or bullied to plead guilty on obstruction of an official proceeding, a law that had nothing to do with what they were charged with. It's a law that was designed for during an investigation, if you destroy paperwork during the investigation. It was a white-collar crime law that they misinterpreted. The Supreme Court ruled that cannot be used against January 6ers. So, by the way, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. So what happened after the Supreme Court struck down that charge on all the January 6th defendants? They all got resentenced. And instead of the sentencing reflecting the misdemeanor charges of like trespassing or whatever it was, and them being served concurrently, when they got resentenced, in a lot of cases, they were sentenced to consecutive 1-year terms for 2 federal misdemeanors. So they would still get a 2 or 3 year sentence, even though the primary charge was thrown out by the Supreme Court. This whole thing was a hoax from beginning to end. Mostly peaceful protest. Prove me wrong.
I mean, yeah, mostly peaceful protest. We used that for the Summer of Love and BLM, and that certainly didn't get any similar justice, quote unquote, out of that. And to me, the problem with talking about these January 6th cases is they all get lumped together, right? There were violent people there that were destroying property and actively interfering, like you said. And then there were others who got caught up in this moment, who had their lives turned upside down, who had their families' lives turned upside down with federal search warrants and different allegations and being lumped into the portion of these people that were committing violent acts, who will never get that time back again. Yet the discussion around January 6th is simply shock and horror from the left, and they keep lumping in everybody into the same group. If you were just there, you were a violent insurrectionist, according to the left. And that's reflected in this discussion with Jim Acosta, who, like I said, I have him on the screen right now. He's seeing a career resurgence since Donald Trump is back in town and running things. And I think he's talking with Congressman Burchett about the Trump pardons for these January 6th defendants and those who were convicted and those who were awaiting charges. Listen to the hyperbole of Acosta here in this interview. It's like it just happened yesterday to him. It's so palpable, and his righteous indignation is just completely over the top.
You defend what Donald Trump did, releasing these people from prison, pardoning them, commuting their sentences. Yes or no?
Again, what I just said, he's asking about all of them, lumping them all together. Do you agree with these pardons, yes or no? How can anyone answer that without knowing the facts of each single individual that received a pardon?
I would just say yes. All of them.
Well, Burchett does not have the strength of character that you have, my friend. He waffles and equivocates, and he basically worries himself into a corner. And Acosta, say what you want about him being a hack and all that. He knows what he's doing in these. He senses weakness. He knows when he has his prey in front of him.
It was the last person to leave the Capitol grounds, the floor of the Capitol, last member of Congress on January 6th when all this went down. I was offended as anybody. If they crossed those barriers, they were breaking the law. But you got to realize, too, they were charged under federal law. Many of them never even saw their day in court and were sitting in a jail cell. So the whole thing is
Congressman,
bad news. But you
Congressman,
also,
I asked you a yes or no question. Do you agree with President Trump's decision to pardon these violent people and releasing them from jail?
Okay, bad question by Acosta there, in my opinion, because now he's only narrowing it down to the violent people. Well, who are the violent people? We know some were convicted. We know some weren't. If you want to just say all violent people shouldn't have gotten a pardon, okay, but Joe Biden pardoned a child killer.
Yeah,
where's the segment of the interview about that?
Yeah, and what's the appropriate sentence for violence, right? Violence goes from, according to the left, words, all the way up to killing someone, right? So what's the appropriate sentence for shaking a barricade and a cop spraining his thumb? How many years in jail do you get for that, right? Talk to the NYPD. How often they're getting into fights with perps and they never get prosecuted, the criminals there, right? How many people got prosecuted when they were throwing firebombs at St. John's Church in front of the White House and hurting Secret Service agents and Park Police? How many of those people got prosecuted for violence then? And if they did, what was the appropriate sentence, right? Never accept the premise of these guys' questions, ever.
How many people were convicted and given a similar sentence for firebombing a federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon? I mean, you want to talk about federal lands? That seems pretty apt. How many people were convicted or even charged at this point for showing up before Supreme Court justices' houses, trying to break in with burglary tools that were intended to break into the house and then bring harm to those justices?
How many non-violent offenders or accused spent time in pretrial confinement in this age of no cash bail, right? How many of those people for nonviolent offenses are sitting in a DC jail for years waiting for a trial in the age of no cash bail and the pressure for a speedy trial, right? How many of those people are there, Jim?
Let's see what happens with Birch's answer here.
If they were truly violent, no, but do I know that they were? I don't know that.
What do you mean you don't know that? We're showing the footage on the air right now. Congressman, you were there that day. There are offenders on January 6th who violently beat police officers. There are offenders who are convicted of seditious conspiracy. That is the truth.
This is a political world, Jim, and I don't remember you all on CNN condemning Joe Biden for commuting the sentences of murderers and child molesters, which he did. And you all
Congressman, I'm not asking you about that. Congressman, we talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
You never do, Jim.
Congressman, we did talk about it. We talked about Joe Biden's pardons.
Oh, Jim, you did not. You all read your report from the Democrat National Committee, as you always do,
that
and
is
you attack
absolutely
Americans.
false. Congressman, are you going to respond and say whether or not it is right to let these people out of jail?
I don't know if it is or not. I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you what isn't right.
You're a congressman. You're a member of Congress. You're an elected official. Take a stand.
They were not given due process. I told you if they crossed the line, they were trespassers. Should they rot in jail for the rest of their lives in a federal penitentiary and never be charged?
Beating police officer, tasing police officers,
Jim,
seditious conspiracy.
What you're forgetting to say is the ones that he didn't release. Why did he not release those? There are several that he did. This blanket thing you're all talking about is not a blanket. It's not a blanket pardon. There were several that he didn't for those very same reasons. Why are you not focusing on them?
Congressman, we're talking about the leader of the Oath Keepers, the leader of the Proud Boys. They should be released from prison?
Well, let's talk about Enrique Tarrio for a second, who wasn't even in D.C. on January 6th. Yet he was sentenced for conspiracy, I believe it was, serving multiple years, and I'm trying to get the rationale of that. Why shouldn't Enrique Tarrio be granted a commutation of his sentence or a pardon or whatever it was here? Well, I don't get why he should rot in jail, according to Jim Acosta, yet he's completely avoiding discussing the murderers and, the child killer we saw as well. I'm focused on that one. But all of the violent criminals that Joe Biden released, not to mention the preemptive pardons we had just talked about.
Well, Enrique, who happens to be Cuban, was accused not officially, right? Because he got charged with seditious conspiracy, which is a bogus charge. He wasn't even there. He was accused for a while of being a non-white leader of the white supremacist group called the Proud Boys, which is so astonishingly absurd that it has to be mentioned now, right? That's why he wound up getting like a 20-year sentence. Who knows what evidence they had against him? Seditious conspiracy. Do I think the government sucks and that they should get slapped around figuratively, maybe? Yeah, if I type that out in a text and the FBI intercepts it, I can be charged with seditious conspiracy with the other person that I was going back and forth with, right? So that's a bogus charge. They went after him because they think the Proud Boys was a white supremacist group. Spoiler alert, a lot of their members are not white, dummies.
I am now deleting every text that Galloway has sent me in the past year, just to make sure I don't get caught up in a conspiracy charge. Because that's the world we're living in right now. Because the law had been stretched to its breaking point in a lot of these cases. You talked about the upcharging and the novel theories of criminality that were brought about this, similar to what happened to Donald Trump in the New York trial and in Georgia and the other DC trial with Jack Smith. It's all the same contortion of the law that we saw that turned minor offenses into offenses that carry multiple years in prison. Let's get back to the video.
What about the leader of the FBI? What about the FBI agents that were on the grounds, that were in that mess?
Congressman,
that were
the
helping
leader of the
orchestrate
FBI
that?
was not rioting at the Capitol that day and beating up police officers. Whatever happened to Back the Blue? I want to show this. The Fraternal Order of Police, another police organization out there, the International Organization of Police Chiefs. If we can show that up on screen, that would be great. They both say that what President Trump did is wrong. They're deeply discouraged by these pardons. And I want to ask you,
Jim, if they broke the law, they ought to be in jail. If they broke the law, they ought to be in jail.
Okay,
you spring this stuff on me. I don't know. I haven't seen the tapes of these individuals of what they did.
What happened to Back the Blue? What happened to backing police officers? Your party has said time and again, we back the blue. It sounds like you let down the blue. You're betraying the blue.
Jim, why don't you just give an editorial and not let me come on? Look, what happened in the last 4 years with police? What happened with all the riots that took place all across the country? Police officers were murdered. Courthouses were burned. Over 22 police cars were burned. Yet no one went to jail for that. Where's your crocodile tears for that? No,
Congressman,
you're not
engaging in
the
a
facts.
game. You're engaging in a game of whataboutism. People were
what about
obviously
what you all do at
prosecuted
CNN
after those
every
riots.
day?
Every day.
What are you
All
you've
you've
done
what
is
we're doing at CNN. We didn't storm the Capitol. These people did. And President Trump let them out of jail. Why not just say, you were wrong, Mr. President? Say it. Why can't you say it?
Jim, as I said, individually, I don't know the case. But on several, he did not release from jail. Why are you not putting the story out on that and saying it's a blanket? Show me the tapes of these individuals beating police officers.
We're showing it right now.
Yeah, we can really identify in these videos who's who and what they're doing. Burchett is kind of correct here in saying that show me an individual example you want to talk about, and let's talk about it. But Jim Acosta wants to do a blanket statement, talking about Back the Blue and all this stuff, talking in absolute. I believe it was the great warrior poet Obi-Wan Kenobi who said, only a Sith deals in absolutes. Only the bad guys see things in black and white and doesn't recognize the gradation of issues that are being lumped together by the media here into one giant mess of a story.
Yeah. Burchett's a good guy. Let me just start with that. But he's in over his head here. He's not one of the most aggressive people we have, right? You don't get sucked into these conversations with these people. You go in there with some facts and some talking points, and you turn around every question on them, right? Why was the January 6th committee? Why did they all get pardons? And why did they delete all the evidence that they collected? Why? Because it turns out that not all police are good guys, and they don't all act the right way all the time. Now, I love the police, but during the January 6th committee hearings, especially some of the closed door ones, it was revealed, and Tucker Carlson did a great job of documenting a lot of this, that the police fired tear gas into crowds that could not disperse, right? Riling them up and causing confrontations. A lot of the videos that CNN is showing are showing police hitting people with sticks. Were some of the January 6th people somewhat violent? Yes. The only person killed on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt at the hands of Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd. That's the only one, right? So if you want to talk about violence, let's talk about that, right? I don't want to talk about people who are rocking barricades and they got sentenced. They did time in jail. You can go and slap an NYPD officer in the face tonight, and you will not spend time on Rikers Island waiting for your trial. You will be released on no cash bail, and if the DA decides to prosecute you, you will not do as much time as any one of those January 6th defendants. Period. What's next, Acosta? Next question.
Well, believe it or not, Jim Acosta is the prototypical hack. I actually use him as a case study in my book, Schnook, Screws, Lies, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores, also available at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. I just want to read something here about Acosta's tactics, because you saw the framing that he was doing here. He was creating his own personal narrative that he wanted to stick to, very narrow. Didn't want to talk about J6 in its totality, as you just did, Ross, talking about what the J6 committee did, testimony behind closed doors, what was released, what wasn't released, the novel theories of criminality that came from federal prosecutors on all this. He wanted to keep the scope of the discussion very narrow, and that was intentional, because that is the narrative that is the light most favorable to Democrats. Now, so there's a quote here in the book talking about Jim Acosta. This is from Acosta's own book, by the way. Listen to the dramatics of this. Talking about Donald Trump. I'll never forget what I saw on the campaign trail and what I have witnessed covering the Trump presidency. Even now, more than 2 years into his presidency, that's when he wrote the book, it's still shocking to remember Trump as a presidential candidate saying he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it. It's still shocking to remember him describing Mexican undocumented immigrants as rapists and still escaping the kind of accountability that would have knocked anyone else out of the race. This is a man with a grudge, against all things Trump, has had it since 2015. Jim Acosta, though, he doesn't have, he has some unclean hands as well. This is a statement, I believe, from a fellow journalist. His name is Frank Miele, talking about Jim Acosta. Pardon me for not joining the journalistic pack and defending the divine right of reporters like Acosta to act as buffoonishly as possible without suffering consequences. I know that is the response de rigueur for editors when someone like Acosta goes out of bounds. But I bring nearly 4 decades of experience in community journalism to the table, and to me, Acosta is just one more self-important reporter who gives a bad name to the hardworking journalists who take their job more seriously than their haircut. Jim Acosta loves his beautiful narratives. He loves pushing them, and wouldn't you know it, he was relegated to a weekend show during the Biden years. And here he is coming back to the forefront of CNN's coverage of Donald Trump. I'm shocked. This is my shocked face right here.
There's one more pardon that I just want to touch on briefly, because it was in the news, but everybody's talking about these other ones, is the Donald Trump pardon of Ross Ulbright, leader of the Libertarian Party once upon a time. I'm torn on this one, because I think he did. So real briefly, he invented a website called Silk Road, and a bunch of people were selling drugs and doing other illegal activity on this website. The federal government went after him. He wound up getting like a 20-year sentence in federal prison. He served 12 years already. The Libertarian Party really wanted this guy out of jail. Donald Trump, during the campaign trail, went to the Libertarians, asked for their endorsement. They decided to not go with Donald Trump, and they ran their own guy, Chase Oliver. But during Trump's pitch, he said he would consider pardoning Ross, right? So the vindictive side of me says, I would have let Ross sit there until the last day of my presidency as payback to the Libertarian Party for not doing the right thing when they could have cost Trump several of those swing states with the small margins that he won by, right? Like the Libertarians typically do. But at the end of the day, that was actually a good pardon, because, He invented a website. People did illegal things on it. I wonder if people do illegal things on Facebook, the old Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Should those CEOs and inventors go to jail for 20 years, right? Or are they protected by Section 230, which is a hot topic in social media circles, right? So pardoning Ross, good thing. Libertarians, wake the hell up. Get on the winning team. You have a fake story.
So Ulbricht's crimes involved a narcotics and money laundering conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison, and Trump kept his word. He championed this guy's cause, trying to reach out to libertarians. This doesn't sound... I mean, we have people who commit murder, who get out of jail in their lifetime. And this guy was... Listen, I'm not going to downplay the crime. Drugs, money laundering, conspiracy, all bad stuff. Does it merit a life sentence? I wouldn't say so. I think libertarians jumped on this cause because of Ulbricht's early support for cryptocurrency, and libertarians love their crypto
because they're dumb. But okay.
Right. Prosecutors also said that Ulbricht solicited 6 murders for hire, including of a former employee. I don't believe he was convicted of attempted murder. I know that I know for sure the convictions had to do with narcotics and money laundering. But all that being said, we go back to the same place where we started this discussion, pal, with the unfettered power of the presidency to give these pardons. Now, you can certainly make a case that this was a bad one if you were a victim of what was going on here or something like that. I think that everyone who's a victim of a crime can take issue with a pardon that involves something along the lines of what happened to them. The thing of it is, presidents get to do what they want with this stuff, and we've seen 2 examples of it just talking about it on the show here. Yeah, and that's really the bottom line, right?
And I think you could fix the pardon system. It would take a constitutional amendment. That's probably never going to happen in our lifetime. And I don't even know if that would fix anything for the reasons I articulated earlier. But what you really have to do in the short term, and Trump is going to try his best to do it in the next couple of years, is to fix the DOJ, right? Joe Biden, in his pardoning statements, said himself that his own DOJ was politicized and was out of control. This is why he had to pardon his son, okay? So if we don't reinstill faith in the justice system, then these pardons become a much bigger topic than they need to be, really.
I tend to agree with that, and I think that's where we got to leave it, folks. Sometimes in politics, there are no answers. And when it comes to the pardon system, there's always going to be people upset about it. There's always going to be people that are going to be very happy about it. And that's the political games that are played. And that's really it. Folks, we're basically beyond halftime here. We got one more topic to discuss here. Just want to remind everybody who's watching, of course, please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell wherever you are to make sure you don't miss any other shows. Whether you're watching on Rumble, on X, on YouTube, we're glad that you're here. Support us on those platforms as best as you can. Check out some merch at shop.buffooneoftheweek.com. Check out buffooneoftheweek.com for the latest news that we put out every day here on the channel. And we're going to move on to, I think this is just as emblematic of these times in this first week of Donald Trump's presidency as anything else going on, including the reemergence of Jim Acosta. Oh God, we got to deal with AOC again. AOC has been freaking out about Elon Musk lately. She has truly doubled and tripled down on statements against Elon Musk and this awkward gesture that it's the only way I can describe it, that he gave during the speech during the inauguration. It looked similar to what people could interpret as a salute by those bad people from WW2 that YouTube doesn't like us naming by name. And to me, and even to the Anti-Defamation League, pal, this all seems so much ado about nothing. But true to form, AOC is in full freakout mode. I just want to play this video to set the stage on just how much of a freak show AOC is lately. This is from her own social media, I believe. Let me make sure I got the right clip here.
Defining thing. Two of probably the most foundational defining things about people may be on today, but I still am not rocking with anyone sympathetic to Nazis. And I will do that until I am 6 feet in the ground. Like, kind of foundational to me as a human being. And so if you're cool and want to defend the Sig Heils and the Nazi salutes, all the, whatever you want to do, that's on you. I'm on the opposite side of that. I'm not with the Nazis. How about that? I mean, but it's very important for us to assert these things, because in times like now, what people want is for all of us to just give up. They want all of us to just give up and say, America's gone to hell in a handbasket and we're done. And just let them do what they're going to do. No. If there are no good people left in the world, I want to be the last one. And that's the ethos every single one of us can take.
Good Lord, just get the nails and the crucifix ready for AOC, because she's ready to jump on it right now. Look, oh, what a bad still frame to end up on with this clip.
Leave that. That's perfect.
How unfortunate. By the way, for those of you who want to watch this on replay, look through the comments that were scrolling through on the live feed. I think it was Instagram. Some of the comments are so based towards AOC that it cracked me up while I was editing this. So AOC she's ready to be the last good person on earth, pal.
First of all, I blame New York City. You created this monster and you unleashed it. And she, in large part, is the reason why the Democratic Party lost in November, lost both houses of Congress, and will likely struggle for the foreseeable future, because she is one of the few national names, one of the few Democrats you can name on the national scale stage, and she's batshit crazy, right? Listen to her. She is beyond dumb. She is crazy. Who did she say once upon a time that probably just wanted to date her? I forgot what that skin. Remember, somebody was making fun of her online.
Wasn't it Elon?
Was it Elon? That's what I was thinking.
I think it was Elon. I'm gonna look it up real quick while you're continuing your rant.
Yeah, so like I gotta go get on Twitter or something and tell X and tell Elon. I think she just wants to date you, dude. Let her know that you're not interested. She's basically stalking this guy, and the internet is great, because I'm sure all of you that are watching or listening saw all these pictures and videos of lots of Democrats doing the Roman salute or whatever the heck it was, right? He was doing something. He said, from my heart to yours. It was so absurd. That was not a Nazi salute. She's completely insane.
Yeah, it was Elon, and it was another interaction with AOC, pal, for sure.
So then what she's the one. She's obsessed with this
She's
guy.
spurned. She's spurned. She's a spurned lover.
Oh, I can't believe nobody's saying that right now. People need to jump on that.
You know, I'm sure they are. And if they're not, they're going to watch this video and they're going to see this right now. This is another type of buffoonery that I discuss in the book. I'm going to plug it one more time. Take a look. Shop.buffoonerweek.com. There's two levels to this sort of emotional triggering and hijack. There's the hot mess that we talk about, where a politician will use emotion to inflame their supporters to their side. There's certainly elements to this right now. And then there's the lunatic, as Galloway just said, the person that is so far gone that they are just triggered and hijacked by everything around them. Let us know in the comments whether you think that AOC is a hot mess or a lunatic. Gallo, which one would you pick? I'm leaning towards lunatic, just based upon the frequency of these triggers and hijacks from AOC.
Bro, she's all of the above. I'm going to give some free political advice to the Democratic Party. They're not going to take it, so I'm going to give them some free political advice. Hysterical women are destroying your party, right? The more you let women be hysterical, whether it's on a confirmation hearing for Pete Hegseth or AOC or Brett Kavanaugh getting onto the Supreme Court, the more you let your females who are hysterical expose themselves on the national stage, the more you're hurting your party. Take that if you will. They won't.
I agree with that. I want to continue on with this and show you guys. I mentioned the Anti-Defamation League. They're usually on the left side of things, I think, for the most part, right? Yet, they came out against AOC's hysterics about Elon Musk's salute here. This is from X as well. Let me take down the banner so everybody can see it. There we go. That's much better. Now, oh, did I lose it? Hang on, wrong window. Gene, it's the wrong window. God damn it. Okay, here we go. The ADL, and it may change here. This is a delicate moment regarding Elon Musk's gesture during the inauguration. It's a new day, and yet so many are on edge. Our politics are inflamed, and social media only adds to the anxiety. It seems that Elon Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm, not a bad person from World War II salute, but again, we appreciate that people are on, and it goes, here's the rest of it, are on edge. In this moment, all sides should give one another a bit of grace, perhaps even the benefit of the doubt, and take a breath. Those days are long gone, ADL. I'm sorry to tell you, it's been a decade of hysterics in politics. This is a new beginning. Let's hope for healing and work towards unity in the months and years to come. AOC would have none of that bullshit. Just to be clear, she says, you are defending a Heil leader of the people from WW2 salute that was performed and repeated for emphasis and clarity. People can officially stop listening to you as any sort of reputable source of information now. You work for them. Thank you for making that crystal clear to all. You can hear the shrillness from AOC in this tweet, can't you?
It's unbelievable. She's, as far as I know, Latina or Latinx.
Yep, that's what she wants to be called.
From Westchester, masquerading as if she was from the Bronx, who her district is mostly in Queens. Not Jewish, but she's highly offended by something Elon Musk did. I don't get it, right? And the country doesn't get it. They called half of the country Nazis during the November election, and it didn't work. Keep going. Double down on it, please. Keep going.
Double down, triple down. Let people like Kirsten Gillibrand and Tammy Duckworth and other members,
Elizabeth Warren and the rest of them.
Elizabeth Warren. Oh, the Elizabeth Warren. We talked about that last week. That comeback from Hegseth about "I'm not a general" was phenomenal, by the way. Keep going down this road, please. It'll make it so much easier for the American people to get behind the Trump agenda going forward. Listen. I mean, AOC, much like Jim Acosta, reemerging in the public eye on the front lines of the resistance. That great descriptor of them that they use freely. They are the Rebel Alliance, but as we discussed previously in the video, they're really the evil empire in disguise. Don't fall for the act again, America. They're not for you, they're for them.
She's the leader of the party. That's it. They have no leader. Let's make it AOC.
I'm in. Do it. So, pal, I think that we got through a lot of stuff here. I can't believe it. I mean, we didn't get to the executive orders so much, but we got through a lot of information. I'm very proud of us. We did video clips, and we were able to kind of put it all together, and we did it on time after, issues with talking that clearly was your fault, and, me traveling, which is clearly your fault as well. So I think it's time to wrap this up with some final thoughts. Do you want me to go first? Or do you want you to go first?
I'll knock mine out real quick. So we didn't talk a lot about the executive orders, but my final thought is going to be on the executive orders, specifically one of them, the executive order on birthright citizenship. I think this one has legs, and I'm just going to briefly say why. I think it's going to make it all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to have to make a tough decision here. The Constitution, the 14th Amendment, doesn't say everyone born in the United States is a United States citizen. It says everyone born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So they qualified it. Now the question is, what does that mean? And if you look at some historical text and some old Supreme Court precedent, it clearly, to me, doesn't mean if 2 illegal immigrants are here or even 1 illegal immigrant is here and has a child on our soil, that child's automatically an American citizen and going to become an anchor baby and pull other people over. That's not what the clause of the 14th Amendment means. It didn't mean it then, and it doesn't mean it now. And just to wrap this in a bow, because there's going to be a lot more on this, I just want to mention it so we have it bookmarked, because it's going to come back. It's going to be a big case, I'm sure of it. Just imagine if we had a literal invasion, right? And a bunch of soldiers were here. And a bunch of soldiers were having sex with maybe against people's wills and having a bunch of babies in the state that they invaded. Would all of those babies be American citizens? Does that make sense? Or if soldiers from another country were here invading us and having sex with each other and had babies, would their babies be American citizens? It doesn't make sense. When they wrote the 14th Amendment, that clause had a meaning, right? Now the Supreme Court needs to figure out exactly what it means in today's language, and let's have at it. Because I'm pretty sure Donald Trump, this executive order has some legs.
Well, time will tell. I know that there is going to be some litigation from that. Definitely coming down the pike this year from Democrats. So my final thought is a little longer than normal, because on the train ride back home to set the show up, I came across this story in the New York Post about Minnesota and Tim Walz. Now, if you remember during the campaign, everyone was talking about threats to democracy and defending democracy, and that was the platform of the Democrat Party. Well, check this out, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between. From the New York Post, Minnesota Spice saw loser Democrats thwart democracy again. Here's what's going on. This is an editorial that was written by, if I get the name here, John Hindenraker. I want to get down to the nuts and bolts of this story. It's really quite interesting. So, in Minnesota right now, after the election, after November's election, Republicans gained seats in the state house, and based upon the tally on election night, the legislature was split down the middle, 67 to 67. What happened was that a Republican challenged one election for one of these house seats, claiming that the candidate lied about his residency, living in a different district all the while running in another one. A judge heard the lawsuit and held that that Democrat cheated and enjoined him from taking a seat in the House. You know what that means now? 67-66 Republican in the state House in Minnesota. So what did the Democrats do? Did they go along with the law and recognize that they lost? Nope. Tim Walz, yes, the same guy that wanted to be vice president, scheduled a short-served special election. He wanted to do a special election at the end of January, around this time, around this week. He wanted to get a Democrat in through a special election that was improperly noticed. He went back to court again. The court found that that date was too soon, and it looks like it's going to be scheduled in March. In the meantime, Democrats, those defenders of democracy, are boycotting the state House of Representatives in Minnesota. So the Secretary of State, his name is Steve Simon, he produced an 8-page memo arguing that though the Republicans have a majority, they have 67 votes, a straight majority, that does not constitute a quorum for the state house to do business. So all the Democrats are running away. They held a fake swearing-in ceremony conducted by a retired judge, and they're not showing up to the state house to do any business. And the Secretary of State is saying, you don't have a quorum to do business. Meanwhile, while these Democrats are AWOL, they're still demanding to get paid for a job they're not doing. Now, the Republicans, for what it's worth, they're handling this in court, and surely that'll all come out in the wash. And they'll probably get a couple of months of governance out of this. But don't ever tell me again that Democrats are for democracy, are defending democracy. That's a load of bullshit as far as I'm concerned now. Illegal election results, boycotting yet still demanding to be paid, and coming up with BS about lack of quorum, even though there is a majority of Republicans, a majority of House members in the state House of Representatives ready to do business. Miss me with that nonsense, Democrats. You're not defenders of democracy. You're destroying democracy. And that, pal, is my final thought. Well, we missed a... Oh, that's Galloway talking about something in the chat. I thought we missed a whole bunch of... we missed a whole bunch of stuff here. You know what? Fuck you. I don't care. You want to mess with me? You want to mess with me? Huh? You want to do something? Huh? Yeah, piece of crap. Yeah.
YouTube is so not heterosexual, man. I hate it.
I hear you. All right. Well, listen. Since you hate it so much, might as well get off of it, right? You got anything else to say? I know I took a long time with a final thought, but if you got something...
No, that was great. I mean, Tim Walz, hell of a guy. He could have been our vice president.
Imagine he was, and what kind of machinations would be going on right now?
Right, he's running a tight ship over there.
Yes, the George Floyd thing, defunding the police, his running from the National Guard, and now this.
Oh.
My God. All right, pal. I'm out of topics, and frankly, I'm almost out of voice here. You ready to shut this thing down?
Shut it down, Mean Gene.
All right, my friend. Guys, gals, everyone in between, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Rumble, X, thanks for tuning in to Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Gene. He's Ross. Check out buffoonoftheweek.com for the latest news coming from us. And we're shutting things down by playing our motherfucking anthem. Good night, folks. See you next week live.
Not without electoral.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
Don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows, flag on my chest, repping my clan, putting faith to the test. Cause we're playing blues behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rocking and roll. Cool in the chaos, but loud in the roar. But loud in the roar. Thunder, arm in advance, march to the anthem, this is our chance. If I ever stand with a smirk and a gaze, holding down the fort in this Democrat cage.